Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just went over all of the major quarterback news in the NFL. Anthony Richardson, the starter in Indianapolis. Daniel Jones might be out as the starter in New York. Starter in Las Vegas is Gardner Minshew, and Trevor Lawrence might be done for the season. All of that earlier on in the show. In this segment, we turn our attention to the NBA. We have hot off the presses a third week of the NBA, our third week of NBA Power Rankings coming up in just 1 second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, November 13th. But like I was saying, getting into the NBA Power Rankings here, it has been a bit. It's been a wild time in the NBA, honestly. But we are here to do a power rankings for them. Starting off at number 30, we have the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz have just been the worst team in the NBA. They get a couple of big wins against some not very good teams. This is just by far the worst team in the NBA. There's a bunch of really bad teams in the NBA, as there always are, but I think this Utah Jazz team does take the cake. Welcome in, Jay. Glad to have you here. At number 29, we have the Toronto Raptors. They're a team that I think could be really good. You've got a couple of guys that are really stepping up that are in conversation for for most improved player award at the end of the season. Guys like RJ Barrett, I've been super impressed with. They're dealing with their fair share of injuries, so for now they're sitting at the bottom of the league, but this is a team that has some promise, especially if they can get a high draft pick at the end of this year. If they can get a guy like Cooper Flagg, this is a team that could take a huge jump. Filled with young talent are the Raptors. 28, go to the Portland Trail Blazers. They just had a team meeting, which is never good to have. Just a couple of games into the season, about 10 games in. It's never good to have a meeting already where your coach calls you out like he did, but seems to have worked. The Portland Trail Blazers got the message. They came out with a big win. Again, a very young team. They're not expected to do much this season, but they have some young talent that's starting to develop, and if they can continue to get that going, this is a Blazers team that could be good in a couple of years. I sound like a broken record here, but this is the Washington Wizards. The same things I just said about all those other teams could be said about the Washington Wizards. I love this young talent on the Wizards team. You have three rookies coming out that have absolutely dominated. Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, Keyshawn George. All of them have come out and played really, really good. And then, of course, you have a second-year player in Bilal Coulibaly. That is an insane young core that the Washington Wizards are starting to develop. And you can see a little bit of that positive energy that is coming out there that you can see a little bit of future in Washington. They haven't had good basketball here in a very, very long time. The Wizards are at number 27. 26 goes to the Bucks, and this team is the most disappointing team in the NBA by a very, very large margin. The Bucks continue to just fail to win games. They don't have any sort of defense. Damian Lillard is going to be out for a little bit. Giannis continues to play incredible basketball. Damian Lillard, when he's in there, has stepped up, had his fair share of 40, 50-point games out there, but it's clearly not enough. Something is wrong with this Milwaukee Bucks team, and I think they need to fire their coaching staff. Doc Rivers never was the answer. From the second he got there in the middle of last season, this Bucks team took a very sharp downward turn. They bring in Darvin Ham in the offseason. Those two together, not the answer. Giannis apparently wants out. They need to move on. They need to find an answer real quick, because if they trade Giannis, this team is probably the worst team in the league, if I'm being completely honest with you. 25 goes to the Sixers. There's been some bright spots on this team. We got the debut of Joel Embiid yesterday. He did not look very good, but we got to see him and Paul George on the court together. Jared McCain playing really good basketball in his last three, hitting at least 4 threes and all of them over 20 points in them. He's starting to develop nicely like we saw at Duke when he was on. This is a Philadelphia Sixers team this is a Sixers team that's starting to find its stride, I think. And they're going to be better than this ranking. They're about to make a big jump, I can feel, but they just had to get that playing time together with Joel Embiid. Now that he's made his debut, this team can probably go a very, very long way in the East. At 24, it's the Pistons. I've been so impressed with this Pistons team. Cade Cunningham coming up huge. They are coming off of that big win in Miami, where Eric Spoelstra, one of the best coaches of all time, just made a head-scratching mistake, something that he never does, handed them a win in overtime. But Detroit coming out there playing really good ball against a Heat team that, granted, was without Jimmy Butler, but still, you get Durant back. The way that Cade Cunningham is playing, this is a team that, well, it showed a couple of flashes last season, even amidst its absolutely embarrassing runs. It's starting to show that it can develop into something that might be successful in the city of Detroit. They're here to 24. 23 goes to the Nets. I'm not so optimistic on this Nets team, but they are the most put together bad team, I think. They're a team that, when I take a look at their roster, they're very fun. Obviously, you got Cam Jordan over there. He's just gonna give you buckets. Dennis Schroeder will give you some buckets every once in a while, and Ben Simmons getting some minutes. He's doing Ben Simmons thing. The Brooklyn Nets, not a very notable team, but they're going to find a way to win a couple more games than you expect. The Bulls at 22, Kobe White is awesome. And that's about where the positives end for this team. They have a couple of guys that I think should be on the trade block. Vucevic, one of them. I don't know what they're going to do. The Bulls generally have not been willing to sell, but I think they're starting to learn their lesson. I'm not sure. They've come way back down to earth from where they started earlier on in the season. The Bulls are at 22. 21 goes to the Pelicans, and this is more of a ranking due to their injuries. Obviously, Zion goes down. You lose Jose Alvarado. You still have a lot of really good pieces. I really do think that this is a team that, when healthy, can make some noise in a very competitive West, but they're injured. They can't stay healthy for some reason, and it really sucks because I just want to see a full season of good Zion basketball, and I don't think it's ever going to happen. 20, it's the Hornets. LaMelo Ball out there playing great basketball. You have a Hornets team that's really made some strides. All of its young talent, I think, has taken a huge step up. I'm not sure how long it's going to last, but for now, when they're healthy, this is a team that is just outside of that play-in rank. That's probably where they're going to end up in the play-ins, and maybe they can find a way to get into the playoffs, but this is just a fun team to watch. That's why they're a little higher on the rankings than everybody else. 19 goes to the San Antonio Spurs. This is a team that, again, you have a lot of young talent, and I think they're starting to develop, but they're still missing that big piece, right? You have Wemby. He's going to be the guy you're building around. Chris Paul has helped this offense out a lot. Jeremy Sochan has taken a big step up. It hurts that Coach Popovich left due to a stroke. He's supposed to make a full recovery. They should be better soon. Should be. And I think I pulled the trigger a little early on this team. I thought they might find a way to make it to the playoffs in a very crowded, very talented Western Conference. They're not quite there yet, but you can see the vision with this team every time they step on the court. They're just not quite at that kind of consistency that you need out of a Spurs team. The Hawks are at 18. Dyson Daniels is playing really good basketball, along with Jalen Johnson, Trae Young, who missed his last game, but they just came out and they beat the Celtics. This is a Hawks team that can beat anybody on any given night. They just beat the Celtics without Trae Young. Again, that is insane. The Celtics are a very, very talented basketball team, and the Hawks are a dangerous one if they can get everything to click the way that it has. When they're on, they're an unstoppable offensive machine. The defense, I don't quite trust as much, but the Hawks here at 18, I think it's a good spot for them. 17 goes to the Sacramento Kings. They're a team that I'm waiting to get hot. They're a team that, has been struggling a little bit from the 3-point line. That was their bread and butter last season. You're kind of seeing a lot of that mid-range, which is what you expected when they bring in DeMar DeRozan. There's some good, there's some bad, not a lot of ugly, but this team is kind of exactly where you expected them to be at the beginning of the season. 16, we have the Miami Heat. How about Tyler Hero? He's really, really stepped up. He's playing all-star caliber basketball. He's keeping this Heat team alive early in the season, something that usually they're not doing. Bam Adebayo's playing good ball as well. You have Jimmy Butler doing Jimmy Butler things. This is a Miami Heat team that's you always need to keep on the radar because the Heat are, again, a very talented basketball team. Some head-scratching moves that were made last night, but that's not something to expect out of this Heat team. They'll turn it around. They'll figure it out by the time the season's over. For now, they're sitting right near the middle at 16. 15 are the Knicks, and this is a Knicks team that I want to put higher. When I take a look at this Knicks team, kind of individually separated from the results, I'm surprised that they don't have a better record. The way that Cat's been playing recently, the way that whole team is able to put up, 10 points, 5 assists, 10 rebounds, basically, every single game per person in that starting lineup is insane. And it's a very, very fun team to watch. I really love watching this Knicks team, but they just seem like they're not finding ways to win games the way that you might expect them to with this roster, the way that everyone is playing, especially with the way that Cat is playing. They're just a very slow offensive team, which is not something that you expect out of a Tibbs unit. The Orlando Magic at 14, they're starting to figure something out. They've won 3 straight games now without Paolo Banchero. They started off as one of the hottest teams in the NBA. They really struggled when Banchero went down, but they're starting to figure it out. Franz Wagner having some really good games. You have a couple of guys stepping up that have needed to. Maybe they're getting some of their basketball groove back. Again, 3 straight games, not just 3 straight wins, but 3 straight blowouts for them. Maybe they can hold on. Maybe they can hold out until Banchero comes back. But that team is much different with and without Paolo in the lineup. 13 goes to the Los Angeles Clippers. This is a team that I want to believe in. Honestly, they keep putting up fights against just about everyone, but they can't close out a lot of these games. James Harden playing some really good basketball. Zubac again playing. I'm really falling in love with the way that he plays basketball as a big man. The Los Angeles Clippers are doing so much better than I expected them to. I thought they would be at the bottom of the league. Instead, they're sitting somewhere in the middle. Still, this is a huge improvement from where I thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season. 12 is the Pacers. We were waiting on the Tyrese Halliburton resurgence. It happened, but it's not just him. You got everybody else in that room really, really stepping up. Siakam stepped up. Everyone in that Pacers locker room has taken a huge step forward, and I think it really shows when they go up against teams like the Knicks and are able to come out with big victories, beat the Celtics earlier on in the season, hand them their first loss. This is a Pacers team that shows why they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They started a little bit slow, but they're starting to find their footing. 11 goes to the Mavs. We saw them play a tight game against the Golden State Warriors last night in Klay's return to Golden State. This team is awesome. I really love this basketball team. Luka continues to do Luka things. Kyrie can just drop 45 on you at any random point, and he has just you know how Kyrie plays. He's got insane handles, and then you add in the shooting of Klay Thompson. When he's on, he adds a whole nother level of spacing to that team that they just didn't have last year. It's a better team than last year, a team that made the finals, and they're going to be very dangerous come playoff time. 10 goes to the Lakers. LeBron James continues to play like a top 10 player, 22 years into his career. He's 40 now, and he's still doing that. That is insane to me. I'm left speechless by what he's able to do. This is a Lakers team that, again, is just leaps and bounds better than they were last year. I think a lot of that has to do with the coaching staff. The Lakers kind of started off hotter than they are now, but still, this is a very, very good Lakers squad. Just filled with a little bit of older players, so they're not going to be able to do that every single day in and day out. 9 goes to the Timberwolves. And the biggest thing with them is Anthony Edwards is shooting threes. Like, he just learned how to shoot a three like that, which is incredibly impressive from a guy that already was one of the more skilled athletes in the NBA. You add his spacing to this game, it really is going to help them. And I think that was their biggest issue. He's a guy that puts up a lot of shots, but he wasn't the most efficient player. If he can continue to be as efficient as he has been, this is a team that will be more trouble than it was last year in the playoffs. The Rockets at 8, and they have just been fantastic. Another blowout win last night, granted, against the Wizards, but all of their young talent is really showing, really stepping up. This is a Rockets team that gave the Warriors a run for their money at the playoffs last season down the stretch. They're showing that wasn't a fluke. This is a really good Rockets team, and I'm not convinced that they're going to be able to keep playing at this level all season long. But this is a Rockets team that they're not in that top tier, but they're definitely in that second or third tier of NBA teams where, you look at them and you're a little bit scared. Your boots start to shake just a tiny bit. 7 go to the Nuggets. And this is a team that I think is it's not that good, but you have Jokic. You have the best player in the world, and honestly, it's not even that close. Jokic is by far the best player in the world. He's doing this with more injuries on his team to some of his better players. Russell Westbrook starting to play some solid basketball games. They lose Aaron Gordon. Not good. But the Denver Nuggets, as long as they have Nikola Jokic, will be a top 10 team in basketball. The Grizzlies at 6. I love this Grizzlies team. This is probably my favorite team this year. Zach Edey's addition has gone really well. The depth that they've been able to build, along with Ja's re-emergence, I'll say, as a superstar in the NBA, this team is loaded, it's stacked, and they're going to be a problem come playoff time. The Suns at 5, that Kevin Durant injury really, really sucks because he was playing MVP level basketball, but they'll still be fine without him. You have Bradley Beal and Devin Booker. This is a team that I'm not worried about. They're a top 5 team in the NBA, and I really think there's a pretty stark difference between 5 and 6 right now. 4 goes to the Thunder. This team I'm a little concerned about. Obviously, they are one of the most talented teams. They have all of the assets, but they don't have their big men. Both Chet and both of their big men went down. Chet went down for I think 6 weeks is what it was. This is not a team that has any centers anymore. They're playing, their tallest guy out there is 6'6". They're playing small ball and they're still finding a way to win. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, very good, but when you go up against a team with like a Rudy Gobert or something, they're going to get punished. This is a team that I can't believe how good they still are, despite all the injuries that they're going through. Celtics at 3. This is an unfair team, honestly, and I'm surprised they've even fallen this far to 3. They just took a loss against the Hawks. Jaylen Brown playing really good ball. Obviously, Jason Tatum playing really good ball. Peyton Pritchard, how about him? 6th man of the year up there. He barely played last season. He was their half-court specialist, as they put it, and now he's getting some real minutes and has been a huge problem for other teams, as when he gets hot, he just does not miss. This is there's not much more I can say about that Celtics team. The Golden State Warriors at 2. They are the biggest surprise for me. I was ready to call it quits on the Warriors. I was ready to say that they were done, but they go out there and Steph Curry, whatever he caught in France, whatever he caught in the last couple games of the Olympics, he has brought that back to the States, and he has been a menace. He is unguardable at his age. It is insane what he's doing on the basketball court. Steph Curry single-handedly bringing the Golden State Warriors back to the number 2 spot. And number 1 goes to the Cavs. When you're 12-0, undefeated, chasing records right now, halfway to the biggest win streak to start a season ever, this is a Cavs team that does not look like it's slowing down at all. You have 4 big stars, which is crazy because, outside of Donovan Mitchell last year, the rest of that big 4 was still there. They just weren't, showing as they weren't competing or playing as good as they are now. The big improvements from Evan Mobley, big improvements from Jarrett Allen, big improvements from Darius Garland have really, really stepped up, and this Cleveland Cavaliers seems untouchable right now. The bench unit playing really good. This is a very, very deep team as well, and that's why they're still undefeated through 12 games. Cleveland Cavaliers are at number 1. But let me know what you think. Love to hear your thoughts on the NBA Power Rankings. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we turn our attention to college football. The college football playoff poll came out last night. We'll talk about all of those 25 teams, my big takeaways from it, and where we stand with just a couple of games to go here in the regular season of college football. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.